Oh, it's a method. Welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I am Nerder Doug, and tonight I am hanging out with this nerd.
Hey, what's going on? And I know what got messed up. Have a little bit of technical difficulties.
Ah,
Uh,
well,
m-
well,
mainly,
Nerdarchus Dave.
mainly, it's a user. It's a
It
user issue.
happens. It happens.
I clicked the wrong screen or wrong
We,
scene
we might have to call the YouTube Technicians Guild to,
to fix that.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is the topic of tonight's chat guilds. And after 88 live chats and probably a ton more Saturday live chats, quests and adventures with you guys, a topic that had not been covered. Oddly enough, I noticed that when I was doing the top newsletters of 2020 post that there was no guilds. I was like,
You would have thought, especially around the time that Ravnica came out, right?
right.
That we would have covered guilds because,
There's
you
like
know,
organizations and stuff, so I might, it's probably just folded into that. But
yeah.
guild's such like a meaty RPG word, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say like in like my early gaming, like it was all there's quite a bit of referencing like the Thieves Guild
Sure.
and the Assassins Guild, um,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean you can broaden it out from there a lot,
Oh
right?
yeah. I mean, even in like real life terms, like in Middle Ages terms, guilds were like vastly varied. I mean, I guess they usually had economic concern. That's sort of like whereas like an order of knights or priests or whatever, it's like, well, their concerns are like religious or arcane. Guild, I guess it's versatile because it's like it's basically just economic. That's the thing that motivates them, whatever their specific tasks are.
Yeah, I definitely feel like there's room to do more with them in some of the games that I've run. You know,
Yeah.
especially like when you're talking about the ruling class of a city or a town. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
the guild is a good place. Guilds are a good place to go, and it's definitely much different than that mayor structure or that king or queen structure.
Sure, it reflects like new money, right? Like royalty and stuff. That's old money. Those are people that have like lineages and they have rich families that are like influential. Guilds are like people that are just like working class entrepreneurs, basically, that band together. I mean, and in broad terms, that could even apply to something like an assassin's guild. It's like, hey, we ain't royalty. We just kill people for money. And it's like,
Yeah.
and it's like, and even these rich people that are at the top, they hire us too. You know what I mean?
I mean, the
They have people do
Facebook
their
group
dirty work.
that Nerdarchy has is called Company of the Nag, and
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of like based off of that as well. The idea, like when we did our fan games, we to use this organization that was an adventuring guild in order to facilitate a monthly episodic kind of game where it made it real easy. Like, why are you going on this adventure? Why is this
Mm-hmm.
particular group together? Because you're part of the guild, and they just send you out.
Oh yeah, that's a proud tradition which I carry on to this day when I do the fan games, and also in my regular games. It is a super easy thing to do. I like just embracing the same spirit that you guys did, where it's like it's an adventuring guild. Like it's a fantasy world, adventures are a thing, and and usually I don't know how you do it for the fan games, probably the same way, but like I just assume like sure they're in the guild doesn't mean their characters exclusively do that stuff. So it's like you can imagine your character however you want, but somewhere in their wallet I was like, oh yeah, I'm in that Nerdarchy Adventuring Guild. So when they call on you, then it's time to go and adventure. And I often use that to get the players to talk to each other because they'll say like, well, you've heard like what's something you heard like around the guild hall about this character, and let them sort of like start off that way, and that right away it has like just group dynamics start to emerge, and like then you can kind of play on those things they come up with throughout the one shot.
So I was just looking at Cody
Sure.
Sam's comment in the chat there.
What is it?
I mean, it was a joke, but guilds really are just unionized workers. You need to pay dues, etc.,
Hmm.
etc. You can make a guild for anything. Yeah, pretty much. I definitely want to do more in the future. With the ruling class, because I feel like there's a lot of politicking that can happen there.
Okay. Yeah, you seem
And
real interested in that, and I kind of got you off track. So yeah, let's hear more about
yeah,
that.
who has done a bit of that in their novels was Ty.
Oh yeah, Ty Johnston,
Yeah. Um,
editor emeritus of nerdarchy.com, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah, your predecessor.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Awesome
uh,
dude. I learned a lot from that guy.
yeah, and also like he's the one that kind of knighted you to be the next editor, sort of.
That's right. He did.
Yeah,
I
but in
felt very
his
complimented.
damn, I forget the name of the novels. I read a bunch of them, and there is a bunch of guild stuff in there as
Yeah.
well. And he did a really great job of introducing the guilds
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's
and
awesome to, at any scale that you want to use it in your campaigns or adventures. Like you're saying, it's like you kind of want to tune that up. Like,
they can be
that's gonna.
adversaries, they can
Mhm.
be beneficiaries, they can be the quest givers.
Oh yeah.
All depending on how you want to do it. Also, like it also kind of speaks to a portion of the game that sometimes seems a little underserviced, and that's like the tools, right? The tool proficiencies.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like if you were to introduce a guild heavy game where it was a lot of more of like the mundane stuff, like the Cartwright's Guild and a blacksmith's guild, or maybe a farm or agriculture guild.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like the players that would have that had tool proficiencies would kind of start connecting to like what guild do they match up, what are the
Hmm.
relationships they have within that guild, and then a lot of times too, like you wouldn't be able to be in a city and practice your trade unless you belong to that guild.
Hmm. Yeah, same as the. I mean, often people use that trope of the thief's guild doing that. Where it's like, oh, you're like if you're a rogue in the city and you're doing nefarious things, but you haven't gotten authorized by the thieves guild. Yeah, but it's the same way you're saying applied to that. And to Cody Sam's point, it is just like being a contractor. It's like, hey, there's like codes that it's like you gotta pay taxes on
I
your
know many a
income.
contractor that they would have to do their work at night to
Well,
avoid the unions.
yeah. Well, I gotta say, if you do run that game, please, I have to play in that because that's the epitome of the kind of games that like Stephen in the chat and Nerdaki author and just other author. And I talk about this a lot too. It's like I love that kind of like mundane stuff in a
Yeah,
fantastical setting,
the
sort of
slice of
stuff.
life.
Yeah, because it's like it's cool it's relatable because it's like like we're just talking like contractors and things like that. And as I've mentioned many times, like players in my game love that kind of stuff too. Just like that part of reality, but with the fantasy twist, like tuned way up.
Double underscore. I think that's a Geldon. He asked if a
Oh
Geld
yeah,
is
yeah.
another name for a horse.
Yeah, to geld, yeah, like GELD, I think.
Well, yeah, but there's an ON on the end, and it's a Geldon, and that's what they're actually called once there's been
Oh,
an
okay.
end to them.
Mm. So yeah, I would love to play in a game like that for sure.
How do you like if you're running that kind of game? How do you think that's going to influence the style of play?
Well, as you were talking, I was thinking of Final Fantasy 14. I think it's the MMO one, and in that game, there's like warriors and mages and stuff, but you also have like trade classes, and it all depends on what you have equipped. It's how it works in the game. It's kind of irrelevant, but I'm just mentioning it. So, like, if you want to imagine your adventure in this world as like I'm a goldsmith, right? That's one of the crafting things. You could totally go from like 1 to 50 as a goldsmith and try to avoid creatures, but just go for like trying to find ore and craft things and get better at that. And so I'd imagine it'd be something like that where it's like, sure, the world is still a D&D world. There's monsters, you're just turning that dial down where it's like, well, maybe the goal of them, it's like, we got to, harvest this rare wood to make this, project, right? And it's like getting there is dangerous, but they're just carpenters and stuff. So it's just like, maybe they got to like, get around the hazardous creatures or like hire adventurers to, protect them and stuff like that. And obviously it's still have classes so they can do stuff too, but just, I mean, like you're just tuning those dials down. Like maybe instead of taking fireball, you like your big spell for that is like hypnotic pattern or something, so you can like just distract things and get away. It just depends on how you want to play. But yeah, I think that'd be totally fun.
So I'm going to be running another game soon.
Okay.
When we're done our Expanse game, and
for that group, okay, that sounds fun.
And I'm thinking about, I want to do like I got sort of formulate this idea for guilds, but I also kind of like want to move away from like more traditional D&D.
Uh-huh.
And I might do another take on our world. And I talked to Ted about it a little bit. And
okay.
we do
already.
So we do a lot with like, we do these chaos storms, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think I want to see if the players are into a world that's mostly just chaos storms. Okay. So I would call the game Under the Dome, right? Mm-hmm. So there are these pockets of civilization where they have these magic domes that they've built to keep out the chaos storms. And I'm thinking like very Arcana Punk, where everything is almost like steam powered, but by magic instead.
Sure.
And everything is powered by this stuff called the grind. So like they have to go out out from underneath the domes in order to like salvage pieces of the chaos storm, right?
Yeah, that's what powers the domes.
Yeah, and they bring back different objects and things that they can grind up.
Sure.
To feed their arcane machines.
Oh, so like stuff out there just gets like suffused with this stuff.
So yeah, and then they drag it back. Okay. They drag it back under the dome, and the dome is going to be probably factionized into guilds, and the guilds will run everything.
Sure.
And my crime bosses are humanoid chinchillas.
Why is that? Did you have a moment?
Because I think they're just funny.
There recently?
I just think they're funny if you if you make a humanoid chinchilla and put a Jeff cap on them and give them a stogie.
Sure.
They look all cute and adorable until they're gnawing through your kneecaps.
That sounds fun. Do you remember that game? It was sort of like in the same vein as like King's Quest. It was called Space Quest, like with Roger Wilco. It was like an old Sierra game. I was thinking of that, like in that story, he was just like the plumber on a space station and stuff. And like most of the time you're just trying to like fix those things, but you get pulled in all these crazy space adventures. It was just a tangential thought I had, but yeah, just something like that where it's like, there's basically, you're just the regular people living in the fantasy world, right? There's still normal people. Not everybody's like an epic hero, but you can still gain levels. And like I said, those are good opportunities to, like different kinds of like spells and abilities become more lucrative depending on what you're trying to do.
Cody Sams, did you just pitch me Futurama? So a neat idea is to have parties work for courier service, basically mail couriers, and have them deliver ridiculous things to weird recipients.
Sure, that'd be fun.
I feel like it's just Futurama without the spaceship.
I never really watched much of that show. I mean, I'm aware of it and familiar with like the broad strokes, but
I like it, dude. I'm digging it, Cody. I think that would be a lot of fun. Although it would be better as a Spelljammer game.
It could be. I mean, but just that, depending on, how you want to run it. I mean, characters could be delivering things to other planes and stuff. You can get as weird and wild as you want from first level onward if you just, want to go for that vibe. I mean, that might be.
That's true. Fun. I mean, also airships are a thing too.
Yeah.
It could be a thing.
Mm-hmm. Heck, I mean, just, it's so It's so different than our world. Just like walking to the next town could be it often is
Oh,
a
yeah.
fantasy adventure.
I will say though, Futurama did work in a lot of like D&D Easter eggs. Everything from Gary Gygax himself to Beholders. So
He's pleased to meet you.
yeah, so it's definitely
Let's
decent.
see. I want to indulge my ego and answer Stephen's request to please talk about the adventures of adventure, which is just a concept that I've used. And actually, it came from like MMOs. My friends and I named like our guild that Adventures of Adventure because we just were like, yeah, it's funny to think like it's just a vocation in this world. And I started have used it in 5e D&D. Mostly when I wanted to start a new campaign with my home group, I was like, just, kind of like lean into this bit of the silliness that, we kind of like. So they had like membership badges that would like ping when adventure was nearby. And, they had like a guild handbook that they could refer to. And I used some of the stuff from like Acquisitions Inc., but
Yeah,
too, but, and I imagined it was like barely like a low rent sort of adventuring guild that was like a startup. So, they had like the guild spell list, that sort of how like in Guild Master's Guide to Ravnica, it's like, oh, if you're in this guild, then, if you're a spellcaster, you just have these spells. So I picked like the worst spells. It was like True Strike and, just the
I,
ones I thought were like that they were able to license from like the mages guilds. Like these are the ones we got. It's better than nothing. So stuff like that.
I just love the idea that everyone gets a handbook,
Mm-hmm.
except for everyone's book is missing different pages. So like the group has got to come together and like compare books to get a full book.
Oh yeah, I mean, that was kind of was an aspect of it, and also solved a problem of my own laziness because I certainly didn't make a handbook for the players. But it was a nice device when they'd be like, "Wait a minute, but you said this before," and it's like, "Oh, you just had like a misprinted one or whatever, or like,
Yeah.
oh, that part was missing from your book." So it was a nice, easy plot device like that too.
So Steven, I don't actually know what the race is yet. I don't know if it would be a player race or not. I still have to come up with it. It's just a concept in my head that hasn't made its way to page yet, and I don't know why. I also might make them a little mutiny and like replace the places where like skin would be showing with scales.
Mm, like a reptilian chinchilla.
But yeah. But I don't know. Chinchillas are super soft, so like I feel like chinchillas need a charisma bonus because people just are drawn to them and want to touch them because they're so soft. So they're gonna have this phobia with with people touching them because it's weird. Uh, but if you've ever handled a chinchilla, you would understand.
What is the double underscores question? What is the typical size limit for a guild? Can they be huge like Nestle or Pepsi? Of course, right? You can be as big or small as you want. I mean, that's these fantasy worlds are just ever evolving, and it's whatever you need it to be. I like the idea of like, and what you were talking about earlier of being exploring more of like upper society and royalty and nobility and things like that. I mean, certainly a huge guild that was like for I guess those are not those are like luxuries though. So what would be the equivalent of that kind of stuff you think in a fantasy world, like a guild that produces
So
something like that?
I was kind of like thinking about it a little bit before we got on here, like where you might have a guild that is like the farmers guild and like part of it is like the agriculture side and the other
Mm.
part of it is the livestock. And then I was thinking, well, what else might be kind of like that where it encompasses different areas? Like, what about an art guild, right? Where, instead of each individual discipline being broken up, you have them all together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which like might be your jewelers, your painters, your potters, your sculptors. But like, and also to the idea of like, how big can the guild be? Well, the question is, how big can the guild be before it begins fracturing, right? And factions begin to form within it, which then begin vying for control, which could, depending on how that the players interact with that particular guild, if they're involved in that guild, they might, they may be applied to take sides, or maybe they get hired as outsiders to be used again, faction against faction.
Yeah, I mean that can raise a lot of like tension and really great like problem solving too. Where you think like, well, again, to relate it to our own world, I mean the great question itself is based on that, referencing real companies. It's like, I mean, do big companies probably do things that people don't agree with along the way, right? I mean, make decisions, and maybe whether it's not paying people fairly or whatever. So it's like, that could cause tension, cool like dramatic moments for players to deal with.
So Brian Smith wants to know, I love the idea of factions and Wizard of Coast stuff, but I feel like they can be way cooler as you climb ranks. Any ideas to make a whole campaign out of raising ranks in a guild?
Sure, it depends on what kind of guild it is. As you were talking about like the craft guild, and we're just thinking about these different things. I'm thinking about my own experiences. It's like, well, what if there was a journalism guild? Somebody to report on the news of the fantasy world, and it's like climbing that would be, when you start out, you'd be doing the crap work of just like going down to the guardhouse, seeing if anything happened that day. Oh, there's a cow fell in the pond.
Oh
that
yeah,
sort of thing. Whereas like later, it's like maybe you see a scoop, or like you see something while you're out, or like you get sent abroad to like war zones and stuff. Except these war zones, there's dragons and giants throwing boulders at castles and besieging them and stuff.
And maybe when you're at the beginning, you get sent down to the the guardhouse to see what's going on, and there is, and like you kind of like come back with a story, and then the lead reporter steals the credit.
Yeah. Maybe you're reporting on like, oh, this person's house was infested by giant rats. They were able to hire some wandering, hobos with weaponry to go down there and kill them. Maybe you go on a ride along with like a constable in the city.
I also feel like the Rat Guild or the Sewer Guild is something that was kind of introduced in a lot of our games early on as well. And it was just an excuse to like, you start off and you're going into the sewers to clear out rats.
Who are the people that built these sewers that are now infested by monsters? They must have been some pretty powerful folks, right? In these fantasy worlds. In Waterdeep Dragon Heist, I don't know if it's just random or what like thing, but you part of it is you're sort of supposed to feel like a citizen of the city, and my character had to like work with the Dung Sweepers Guild, like yeah. And I remember it was like an early morning thing, and we always were like adventuring and carousing all night, so we'd like stumble to work as Dung Sweepers. We had to do it from like 8 a.m. to whatever, and like the people all liked me because I would always stop and get donuts on the way and stuff like that. Because again, I like that kind of real world
Dunkin' Donuts, like,
huh? Yeah. So hey, even though she was a surly Dwargar woman, they liked her
because she brought the donuts. Yeah. Fuck yeah.
I remember thinking like, oh yeah, this character is going to be all gruff and everything. She's from the Underdark. And then we played a few times, and I was like, if you came from a world where it's like every second you're in danger and it's lightless and there's horrible things, and it's like, this is awesome. Like, why would she be? She just lived it up. It's like, this is incredible. Like, I can just walk around outside. There's no monsters attacking me.
Oh yeah, it's definitely on the plus side for sure. Mm-hmm. I love just being able to be around and not being attacked by monsters. Mm-hmm. Life is good. You can
stop and get donuts and just walk down the street.
Is that why Duergar are so sorely?
That and the dwarves were dicks.
Yeah. Oh, you guys got captured by mind flayers and illithids. You guys are losers.
But we fought our way to freedom. We got free. Like, yeah.
You're losers. Yeah. I like dwarves that don't get captured by illithids. and enslaved. Oh
Oh
my
my
god.
god. Wow, you just spoiled dwarves for many, many people there.
I know, I know. I do
Good.
like.
Dwargar forever.
Well, Duergars are kind of cool as
Yeah.
villains, and I think they get underrated. But I guess it was Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes that like delved into them deeper, and you
Hmm.
read through it, you become really sympathetic towards them. Like, oh, no wonder why they're evil. These guys were jerks to them.
Yeah. Um, I like subterranean races. I play a lot of if I have a type. I often
Yeah,
play like Svirfneblin, Dwargar, Drow. I don't know, I like things that are under the earth. It's interesting to me.
you would have liked our Outcast game.
Yeah, it just seems interesting world to explore. I mean, it's like just this subterranean world. It's cool. But then you never play down there. It's always so
That's what I said. You would like the Outcast game. It was all in the
hmm.
Underdark.
Maybe that's why Out of the Abyss always seemed compelling to me.
Yeah. Well, I used that book a lot for that campaign.
Oh yeah, it's awesome for. I've used the Oozing Temple many times.
So, our next, you're going to be running your quest game, right? Is that what you're running?
Yeah, yes, Quest RPG.
And you're bringing back the Adventurers of Adventure, right?
No, they were. Uh, no, I was gonna do like a sort of like a spiritual successor to Injust Quest,
Oh,
and that
that's right.
was.
That's right. I was
But
that
who
the
knows? It's
preview?
still up in the air. We could change it up. I mean, nothing's set in stone
Oh
until
no, we
Craft
can run.
changes.
We can run the Futurama game.
Yeah, I have some ideas. For that, I think it'll be fun.
Was there any culinary guilds?
In any of my games.
Yeah, yeah. In
Well,
that.
yeah, I mean, in that, yeah, they sort of. I mean, basically the original pitch was like they were making a show, or not like a travel cooking show,
Yeah.
and that was their funding was from like a guild sort of conglomerate, and so they had to like, and we kind of got away from that in the game, but that was the original idea was that they had to like get good ratings and stuff like that.
Well, maybe we could delve deeper in that side of things if
Yeah, yeah,
if we
that's
do
what I
that.
was. I think that'd be fun.
Like it starts off with the crews on strike.
Well, I would like to pick up where it left off, which was they just dematerialized on Robin's character's familiar who had turned into a giant ship and rematerialized somewhere else in the universe. So I kind of left it pretty open ended.
So Robin's character is going to be the
Yeah.
only original character.
Yeah, yeah, and she's gonna revisit, or they're gonna revisit that. So I.
They were playing like some kind of spider creature, right?
Yep, like a humanoid spider as a void warlock.
What
Void
were
pact.
so what did you guys use for the race for the stats?
In that Hyperlanes book, they have a species creation thing, which is basically sort of like just a menu of traits and things that you can put together, and they have sample ones too. One of them was
Yeah.
arachnoid using those same things. So it was like, they had extra limbs and they could weave a web, and that was pretty much it. And then they just had like, some stat bumps.
Brian Smith, what Wizards of the Coast have the guts to publish a cobbler character class?
See, that's what I mean. Well, two things for that. One, there's a really awesome Kickstarter that I just came across one day that really did well called Dragon Stew that you can look up, which has um, it's all about like cooking themed subclasses and adventures and quests and really cool art. Super good. There's a really great post on nerdarchy.com if you want to Google Nerdarchy Dragon Stew. I'm sure you'll find it. And I really liked that. But that's a great way to illustrate what I was going to say. It's like, a lot of it, I mean, and you guys have talked about this in videos a lot. Most famously in my favorite Nerdarchy clip of all time when somebody asks the warlock, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" And you say,
Oh man, I don't remember.
I can't do the gravelly voices, and he said, "I serve the Dark Lord."
Oh,
But
that's right. That's right. That might have
so,
been.
and your character that you'll be debuting tomorrow too is like this too, where you know, in the context of the game world, people don't go around saying like, "I'm a fighter, I'm a paladin." I mean, maybe they refer to that sometimes,
Yeah.
but you could like say you're a cobbler, and that's what you kind of character you want to play. Doesn't matter if you're a warlock or a cleric, if you just pick things that seem like would help you be a cobbler and then flavor your descriptions of those things through that, then you could just be like a cobbler, and it just like any of the character classes gets ridiculously fantastic real quick. I mean, it's as I use the example of like falling off a mountain and surviving. Like, oh, that's not realistic. It's like nothing is realistic at that point. Like an axe, like or a sword killing like a gargantuan thing in one hit is not realistic either. Or
Oh,
being stung by a purple worm stinger or whatever. It's like so. If you're a cobbler and you can justify using your cobbling tools to make a fireball because you're a wizard, sure. Maybe you kick a fireball, like you make like flint soled shoes or something, so you can like kick up the you know
yeah.
sparks and
You
fireball. I don't
don't.
know.
You don't get stung by the purple worm stinger as much as you get impaled.
Yeah, I mean, like the stinger would, if I mean, obviously hit points are abstraction and stuff like that too. But I mean, if you did get stung by it, it would like be it's as wide as your torso. Like
Yeah.
nothing would be there anymore. It would probably just cut you in half.
It's
Like
like let
I mean,
me.
their stingers probably as big as a car. You know what I mean?
Well, the best thing is just get the Colossal Red Dragon if you can find it. It's only like $500 if you get it on game, and just like set that out and set your mini next to that. It's just like the scale is so ridiculous.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's a fantasy game. It's an epic fantasy game, and over the years, it's evolved to where it's like you're a lot more powerful early on than you used to be. But that's cool. I mean, it only takes like reflavoring some stuff, to make it believable.
So Brian, asks coolest, most challenging way to join the Thieves Guild, which that makes me think of like my early gaming where like if you if you did anything larcenous in like a new town, like you're definitely going to get visited by the local Thieves Guild, members of the Thieves Guild. And they were either going to be like, you got to join, or they were going to try and run you off.
Yeah.
And to that point too, you might also have to take some kind of test in order to get into the Thieves Guild.
And you can learn a lot about players from that too. It's like, well, are they the kind that are going to want to like, I'm not going to let somebody tell me what to do. Like, F these guys. In which case, you're like, boy, if I played this realistically, you guys would get murdered because it's a thieves guild. I mean, they're probably pretty big. Or are they the kind that are like, oh, this is great. We can get all kinds of thieving jobs from this. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden you got a thieves game, which I've never played in, but it's like, that's like one of those like, urban myths of gamers. It's like, someday I'm going to play that like all thief game, and all we're going to do is like steal stuff and play it. So I've never done it.
It is. I mean, it's so much. It feels so much easier in 5e with the criminal background. Like you could be any class, but as long as you have the criminal background, you like it kind of works. Uh,
Yeah, but I mean, just to be like, somebody that will steal shit from do illicit stuff for money. It's like, hey, you could be a farmer, a folk hero, a sage. That I mean, and often those thieves guilds, in fantasy literature, they have like some sage like dude that just stays at the guild. They know all the stuff. They can find the blueprints for the place you want to break into or whatever. They're the
yeah.
nerd, the egghead.
Well, but at the same time, you still need like everyone's got to be able to go out and do the thing if it's gonna be
Sure.
fun for all the players. And I
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
like 5e is the best D&D system to be able to do that, where everybody can have some of the skills that they would need to be effective in the field. So you can be like an Ocean's 11 kind of crew and
Oh
pulling
yeah,
off
it's
the
super
heists.
easy in 5e. Yeah, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Obviously,
just the way you can combine all those things, your race, ancestry, culture, and your class and background. It's like, yeah, I mean, you can definitely put together like a crew. And especially, if depending on how much you talk about it in like a session 0 or whatever, like if you wanted to be like, an Ocean's 11 game's a lot different than like Heat. You know what I mean? It's like those
Yeah.
guys are not, sure they might have been a little charming, but it's like there was nothing charming about like, okay, well, our plan is, to do this, and if anybody gets in one way, we'll just execute them in the straight. Like that wasn't really their style, right?
So yeah, there's definitely some options for that for the Thieves Guild game.
To answer that question, to me, the best Thieves Guild example that I can think of and initiation thing is Fafhrd and the Grey Mouse, where they had to steal a house, and they hired a bunch of porters, and they like, and it was like a really ornate, fancy like cottage, right? And they like threw garbage all over it and stuff, so it looked dirty. And then they like just broke the foundation and just picked it up, like covered in trash, and like had these porters go through the city.
wait a minute, they had to steal a whole house?
Yeah. That was like their, because they got caught for thieving, and they were like, well, they're not going to do it. So they'll, it was just like a joke to the Thieves Guild or whatever. But they did it. And then there was like some curse inside, and they got wild adventures. Those stories are awesome for like that kind of stuff, especially. I mean, Lankhmar is the city of thieves. It's just like all about like ne'er-do-wells and shady
I don't know.
stuff.
I don't know if I've read any of those.
Yeah, they're fun. They'd stand there. I mean, those were like adult literature, back then too. They weren't like young adult stuff. They were like pulp fantasy. So it's not like,
I feel like I've possessed some of those novels. I just don't know if
yeah, they're cool. I'm on, Amazon books and stuff like that. I mean, if you search for like Fafhrd and Grey Mouse, you're fan, but there's like Swords Against Deviltry is the first one, I think.
Yeah.
They're basically just a bunch of short stories.
Yeah, a lot of that older stuff is like that.
There's a rat guild in Lankhmar, except they are actually rats who have this like civilization beneath the city, and they get like shrunk down and turned into rats and like weave their way through society there and stuff. It's pretty fun. Yeah, somebody mentions Blades in the Dark. That basically is a guild. I mean, you are basically a crew. Guild thieves planning everything. Most of that Taking Chances book, which is one of our best sellers, is sort of like that. I mean, it's basically
all games of chance and using tools.
Yeah, and there's like a fleshed out location that's like a place for people to just practice trade, like you said, sort of like it's not like a singular organization that runs it, but it's like it's just a place where all people like practice their trade, and it's like a convention hall basically. Everybody's got a booth and they sell stuff, and you can train there, and there's like a little mini adventure where you overcome the challenges with your tools. There's those awesome games you came up with. With using your tools to like basically battle bots with constructs, and then another one with oozes.
Yeah.
That's really fun. I've done that a few times in games with players.
I oftentimes wonder if we shouldn't like blow that out to like a full book of all tools and games.
I'm not I love tools. I mean, that's like one of those things. If I see like a conversation about tools online, I'm like, oh, tools. Like, we put them in all our products and stuff. I mean, I often think about that when I'm running games. I try to remember what people had, because I said every time, I think it's just what you're a nerd about, and maybe your character is like, that's what they could be in a guild, and it's like, doesn't mean they have to do it 9 to 5, but it's like, sure, I played a character that was like a Ron Swanson inspired ranger, and he was super into like his carpenter's tools, and it actually helped. It was a Ghost of Saltmarsh one shot, and I was like, well, is there any because we had to choose like which boat we wanted to go on. I was like, is there any difference in the craftsmanship of them? And I got to make a carpenter's tools check to assess them. I got a nat 20. And I don't know if it was like in the game. It was Power Square RPG. He's just really good. So I don't know if it was part of it or not, but it's like,
It is
I
now.
felt cool.
At least
Yeah, I
that
felt
game.
cool. So it's fun.
I know
That's
you were
what
always
you
trying to
learn
use your
about.
glass blower tools in
Oh,
Robin's
in
game.
Robin's game, yeah. I love that stuff. I mean, like I said, I just think like that's what you're a nerd about. If I had a tool proficiency, it would be tabletop role playing games. So, if I was an
Isn't
adventurer,
that a
like it's
gaming
the same
set
thing.
though?
If you were on some grand adventure and you were like, is that a D20 over there?
Yeah.
Like, what's that doing here? You'd go check it out.
I feel like tabletop role playing games is a game set,
Mm-hmm.
not a tool. Get it?
I once ran a campaign. This was in 3.5, and part of it I thought it would be cool to have like that there was like a tradable card game that people played, in the world, just sort of like as a background element. And it was real simple. It was just like elemental based. Like there was like fire, water, and like light and dark and all that kind of shit. Super simple. I don't remember now, but the people just liked playing that. So like that was the whole campaign. It wasn't a long campaign, but like it was mostly just about that. And they went to tournaments and stuff. They wanted to just play the game against other people and like win money and cards. So you never know.
Beware what you introduce.
Hey, that's why I push it on our Facebook page all the time. And in games, it's just like, be like, oh, that's not where they're supposed to go. It's like, you know what? You're just going with the characters, man. Like that's where they're supposed to go. So
When you mentioned the game, it does make me think of the one video me and Ted did about the deck of many things.
oh yeah.
With the
That's a
idea
fun
that you're trying
video.
to build the deck, you have to find all the cards to make a full deck.
That's
and
a
then-
really fun video. I like that one a lot.
I don't know. Maybe that'll have to be one of the campaigns. Although, how many cards are in a deck of many things?
I'm gonna say like 30.
So I feel like you need like at least an episode per card.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a much longer game.
Well, you can always curate it too. I mean, maybe the deck of many things in your world or that campaign is 9 cards or 12 cards or whatever.
That's true.
You can
Or
curate,
maybe
you can
that's-
make up your own cards, or just take out. You could take out a lot of the really crappy ones if you wanted, and it's so it's like, okay, well, there's still a chance you're gonna get a bad one, but you're
Or-
probably gonna get something cool.
If the idea is you just have to complete the deck, right? That's just how many are missing.
Yeah. Well,
Maybe
you could have caches. Maybe you get like 5 or 6 of them, and like to your point, you're saying like it's inert until it's complete.
yeah.
Yeah, so maybe just
Dude.
if you wanted to run it in a shorter span of time, just have them get like a bunch of cards one time, or you could even swing it both ways. Like maybe they'll gain a bunch and then lose more than they had, and then gotta like catch up with that person and get them back and stuff.
Especially
It'd
if
be
there's
really
like
fun.
some kind of competition. Well, it would be cool. Well, that might be cool that there's some kind of competition at the end. So the culmination of the campaign would be like everyone then gets to draw however many cards, and that's the final session. And then we see how you made out. And this way, if it breaks the game's over, so it doesn't matter.
Hey, I mean, we talk about it so many times. If you just trust the GM and the players you're with, I'd be totally cool with that game, like with just playing the results as you are. If somebody ends up being like 10 levels higher than everybody, it's like, whatever, man. Like,
Well, I mean, some of the bad things are like you're dead. So
yeah,
like,
well, then you just make up a new character, man. I'm cool with that. I don't mind that stuff. Those make fun stories, whether it's an epic death or just like a, instant, unexpected or whatever.
yeah. But I like the idea of doing it at the end where you can kind of see like you get the fun of what happens,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't have to really deal with the ramifications.
And I was thinking like, oh, if you're streaming, you could do this, but you could just do it in your home game too if you wanted. For like, if that was
Yeah.
your last session, like maybe put together a little like thing like in movies where it's like so and so went on to do this.
Yeah.
Maybe they draw their cards and find out, and then you could like kind of.
Have you had the deck of many things show up in any of your games?
I don't think not as a player or as a DM. No, I don't think I ever have. Maybe back in the day when I was a kid, because we just through like, I mean, we used the Immortals set, and like we went and just fought all the demon lords, and I mean, so it might have been in there somewhere, but not anything like that's meaty.
We've definitely used it several times,
Oh yeah.
and it's always some people get really good stuff and other people get really bad stuff.
Well, I mean, if again, I think it's fair to like, if it's a newer player or somebody that's unfamiliar with it, I think it's fair to like explain that to them. Like, look, this is a classic thing. It could be really crappy, and let them know that. And if they want to draw, then just play by what you get, man. Like just, I mean, it could be fun too if it was like people, a group of new players that didn't know what it was, and they just were like, oh, let's pick them, and crazy stuff happened too. But I think it would be, I think it's okay sportsmanship to just let like somebody know that,
this could suck.
It could be really bad. It could be really good too, but I'm just letting you know.
I know. I think that's
identify. Just give it some context. Right? Even if like if they do detect magic, be like it's overwhelming with magical power. Just so they know, like this ain't just some oh, it's a deck of cards. You know what I mean? Like
no,
it's special.
I definitely agree. Even if they're not new players and veteran players, I definitely agree with giving them the warning. But I feel like that's almost like when it comes to players, like that's going to make them want to draw more, not less.
Sure. I just making it clear, like, it could be bad. Just letting you know.
Just letting you know.
Because I draw out, I mean, we've played a lot of, I don't even get too upset when anything happens. I mean, like bad to my characters or they die or whatever. It's like, it sucks like anything, whatever. But it's like, it happens. It's fun. It makes cool, memorable things, moments.
Actually, in some ways, I like character death.
Yeah,
it gives me the opportunity to make another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Yeah, when it was funny, one of those tag questions was like something like that, like, "Oh, do you have any characters that you like don't get a chance to play or something?" It's like, yeah, everybody does, right? I mean, there's never enough,
the list is like endless.
Yeah. Had several just while we were talking in this chat right now.
That is so true. So I guess we should mention. Well, maybe we should mention tomorrow we're starting a new game.
Yeah, sure.
So we'll be playing Dungeons and Delving with Nerdarchist Ted at the DM. So
I think it's gonna be fun.
What are you playing?
What am I playing? It's a first in many ways. I'm playing a Warlock, which is I've never played. I don't think I've ever played a Warlock. Every time I go to make one, I'm like, I don't like these. But I was like, I'm going to try that out. It's a variant human, and I took that because I worked it out with Ted where she can be a hollow one, but it's a feat. Because I was like, this is pretty powerful, and it's not like an inherent bonus. It's kind of like a supernatural gift. So I was like, oh, that's worthy of the feat. But she's kind of just like a Wednesday Addams sort of, deadpan undying warlock, which I was like, I'm just gonna go all in and play like the worst thing that I think. I was like, I don't like warlocks. Undying seems like it sucks.
Yeah.
But it's mostly an NPC from my home setting that I just have gotten to like really like over the years because everybody seems to like gravitate towards her, and which is weird because she's like always just sitting in the tavern, like buried in the book, doesn't want to talk to you. I actually have like a little scale that I came up with years ago of like how high rolls people or like, tick marks of things people need to like get her to just not be a biatch to them because she just doesn't care about that stuff, like talking to other people. And I was like, I want to play this character. It was like, it's fun. I've had a lot of fun just sort of playing her as an NPC just because people interact with her. So I'm going to see how it goes.
And so the premise behind the game, if you guys haven't heard us talk about it, is it's a reality game show set in the future where groups do dungeon runs, and I guess Ted's going to come up with some kind of scoring system to see how, and it's like I guess tournament style, and you go through for how for the 12 weeks or however many weeks the dungeon delving is, and then at the end I don't know if he's going to come up with like a leaderboard or something. And then see, where we fall on it based on what we do
in our dungeon runs, but then part of it is going to be like us interacting with like maybe like getting fans and sponsors, maybe rivalries with the other teams that have to do the dungeon that are running the dungeon is through the dungeon as well. I don't know. We'll see where it goes. And Ted's going to be like portraying mostly this like kind of like this ringmaster style character. It's also he definitely has a vibe of like Running Man as well.
Yeah. Except not as sinister, right? Like we're not the people aren't forced there.
Yeah,
you know,
no.
It's not like, right.
People sign up for it and like
right. But just the fact that like you're going into this zone of like arranged dangers.
I mean, as far as we know, too, right? Like we think maybe the monsters are constructed or whatever, but maybe they're real. People go out and wrangle them and bring them in. Who knows?
Yeah, and I mean, even more so than that, it's like maybe we do think that, and that's not the case at all. Maybe like people are like cursed that go in there and they're like bound by some demon or something. I don't know. I mean, he could like totally make it crazy and sinister if he wanted.
There's definitely some room. There's some room for that. So I'm playing a battle master variant human as well, who specializes in throwing things. But my background is entertainer, and I took the chef feat. And he's a cook, he's a chef, and he got tricked by a rival on a cooking show to accidentally signing up for this adventure show instead. His rival switched out the form. So now he's in his cooking show. But it's okay because his goal is to raise enough money to have open his own restaurant. So he's going to do it. He's dedicated to doing it. And so I got this idea that there's this fantasy version of a hibachi chef, but it's like fine dining meets hibachi chef, and it's a elven cultural thing.
Okay. That's cool. Yeah.
That's where the entertainer background comes from.
Sure. Boy, I know it's would have been complicated because in a book and all this stuff. But I mean, you should have looked at that fighter subclass and that dragon stew. I think you would have really like hit that note you're looking for. It's not too late. Still got a day, but
it's too late. It's not on D&D Beyond.
Yeah, so I think it'll be fun. Yeah, because we're gonna the backstage antics. That was real challenging in retrospect. I was like, boy, something like a wizard would be perfect for this because you can. It's like, oh well, every other episode is like the backstage antics, so I probably will I'm not gonna memorize Fireball that day. I'll do these ones. Yeah. So choose for a warlock, choosing spells and invocations. I was like, well, I need things to overcome challenges, but I also need to think about the between times of messing with people and trying to impress sponsors and stuff. I also dumped Dex, so I'm going to see how that goes with this character. But I think I sort of mechanically worked my way around that. I mean, armor class sucks, obviously. But,
and Dex saving throws.
Yeah, but being a Hollow One, Undying One warlock is pretty damn hard to put down, man. So I'm kind of curious if I'll be riding the lightning. It's well, if it's really dangerous, it's going to be tough, but it's pretty hard to put them down. So I want to play sort of a tanky, kind of tanky.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
I'm excited to actually be able to finally play a thrown weapon specialist.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I love the idea that your weapons are just the rollout thing of knives, and that's sort of how Kanada's character was in Just Quest. He was a Horizon Walker Ranger, mostly just so he could charge up his knives with the force energy. But early on he got a magic vial of umami that featured pretty prominently. And speaking of tools, he uses cooking utensils in every episode at least once. In fact, the final roll of thing, he got advantage too because he used his mystical umami shaker on the dish.
Well, that makes sense. It makes a lot of sense, especially for that particular game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a fun game.
Unfortunately, my cook is not in a cooking show game.
But you can still use your flair and his cooking knowledge to hey man, food and cooking is a metaphor for a lot of things I've noticed in life when I'm like talking to other people. I'm like, well, it's a lot like cooking an egg, or it's a lot like doing this, or whatever.
Well,
So
I
with
also
that,
like I imagine like this character has the attitude of like, oh, I guess this is what we're doing now. So he starts turning all of his cooking gear into an arsenal. He starts strapping all of his pots and pans on him for armor.
Mhm. That sounds fun. Have you ever developed a guild for your game, like you know, using any of the 5e like resources, or looked much at that like Acquisitions Inc. book, which is so good. I can't, that stuff in there is so fun. Or have you ever had players like my own? In fact, one of my friends has been sitting here with me. It's funny because I'm talking about his characters a lot, but just developing like their own businesses and organizations like guilds. Has that happened much in your game? I guess did the Gabelos kind? No, I guess they sort of, that was a solo job making that dungeon in their basement. Huh?
Yeah, they were just contracting people. So not really. I mean, we had the bathhouse, which would have turned into a business, but it was more like it was mostly being constructed throughout the campaign.
That game impacted you a lot, huh? That campaign had like a
Yeah, it was a lot of
profound
fun. There's
effect on you.
a lot of stuff that went on in that game, and then I want to say in Ted's game though, Ryan's character,
Oh
had
yeah.
the tailor business and shop,
Mm-hmm.
but then also was developing his own thieves guild as well, called the Silver Hands. Uh, Also, he was the mayor of the town as well. So
Yeah, yeah, that seems pretty shady. That's what's cool about guilds, and even like with some element of action to them too. Like something like a tailor's guild, right? You think, oh, it's innocuous, but it's like, hey, the most wealthy people in the town come here to get tailor-made clothes. So you'd hear all kinds of stuff that they probably just would tell, like, it's a tailor. What is he gonna know? But they could be like informants
well,
and stuff.
yeah, that was
And
Ryan's thing. Like as the
oh,
tailor,
really?
he would use that as profession to case out
Yeah. And maybe
potential
have you ever
marks.
seen? Have you ever? Oh, yeah, that's just he was totally the nefarious guy, but he was also the mayor. Wow, he's corrupt. Huh? Did you ever see the Grand Budapest Hotel?
I did not.
Oh, so it's a movie about like it's a Wes Anderson movie and it's kind of outrageous and stuff. It's about this like maitre d at this big hotel or concierge, but like part of the movie is not a big spoiler. There's almost like this sort of like espionage organization of concierges at hotels. So like when something goes wrong, they like get on the phone and like they're all calling each other and using their concierge, skills to help out. And it's like that kind of stuff could be fun, to what we were talking about earlier, where like what kind of adventures would you do? Anything really. It's like it just depends on how you want to contextualize the guild in your game. Like maybe you're to Brian's point too, or like we were talking about, like cobblers. It's like this cobbler in another town's got a big problem. We got to like band together, like all the cobblers in the region of need to do whatever. It's a fantasy world. It's like our world, except there's dragons and shit, and people can just like wander around and become wealthy and powerful by doing odd jobs. Which in our world, you'd just be a bum.
The someone I believe
Money or a job.
Brian asked about chat interaction. I don't remember what Ted had decided on that.
I mean, not any kind of like structure or direct sort of thing. We discussed things of like super chats having some effect, but he never got back to me on anything particular. One thing I think that he was going to do though that would be helpful is ending the sessions like when the timer in the dungeon goes off, and so that way it's like kind of a cliffhanger, but also gives him a week to like calculate the score and
Figure out how
figure out what
the
the other
rankings.
teams would do, because I was like, that is unfair to him to have to like think about that like live
Yeah.
in the moment.
He can
And
figure it out. He's
also
got
that
it.
can kind of account for like our progress too, because he's like, well, what if you finish early? I'm like, just keep making crap up until the buzzer, basically. It's like if you did 2 things in 2 hours, then you're probably not going to score that great. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
and there might be some other tricks you could pull too to like
Mhm.
stall when the score comes in, or oh, the scores aren't in yet because we're still waiting for another team. I mean, that's how I would probably handle.
Yeah.
The finishing up early or whatever.
Or
So-
because it's a Nerdarchy production, could just be flying by the seat of her pants, and we'll figure it out as we go.
There might be some of that as well.
But
So
it'll be
we are
fun.
at the 9:00 hour. So it is time. We'll be back here tomorrow for the live chat at noon, and then back tomorrow night for some Dungeons and Delvings. Please join us. And so until next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.